don't be afraid to take that step. Probably close to 90% of the patients that I see mention their legs. I hate this part. I despise this part. This is always the worst part. As a mom, my son was only 2, crawling through a pop-up tunnel when I had the idea. We don't change, we don't grow, we don't learn without that.
Hi everyone, my name is Irene and welcome to Purpose, Why Medicine, where I speak to professionals in healthcare who exemplify living with purpose and want to share their unique journeys, experiences, and learnings with our audience. I'm here today with Annie Munoz, CEO and co-founder at My Village Innovations Medical, and licensed physician assistant with 20 years of experience in OBGYN. Annie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Irene. I'm happy to be here.
So let's start with a little game. Would you like to pull a card and we'll both answer the question?
Sure. I'll go for the middle card here. Do you want me to read it or do you read it?
Sure, I'll read it. This is funny. How do you sabotage your own possibilities of success?
I think a lot of times sabotage can be in overanalyzing things and thinking everything has to be absolutely perfect. And I think in the end, you just have to go back to what is the goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And you just need to stay on that path. And even if it's not perfect, it can be perfect later. You just need to make sure that you're showing people like this can happen.
Right, and that's definitely something I'm working on. It hindered my progress because I was just too focused on nitpicking myself.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people do that, and it's easy to fall into. We don't want to represent ourselves in like a dim light. We always want to be in the bright, shining light.
Right.
But I feel like when we do that, we lose out in our momentum to get to that shining light. And so by just continuing to move forward, we actually shine the light faster instead of just constantly worrying about getting there before we start to light it.
Mm-hmm. Stay in the light.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So let's start by talking about your journey to medicine. Growing up, did you always know you wanted to be a PA?
No, not at all. I knew I wanted to get into medicine in college. So I was kind of pre-med in my direction, and I had taken all the undergraduate courses that I needed to, and I actually wanted to get into physical therapy. So that was my track to begin with, but you have to collect so many hours of physical therapy. And when I was doing that, a lot of the patients, they were in pain. They were post-operative, they were older, they had hip replacements, things like that. They did not love being there, and I did not love being the brunt of all of their complaints all the time. So I decided that I really liked the research avenue. And then I worked at Hopkins for a couple of years in research, and a physician there said, you should look into physician assistant school. You get to, go into different directions. And that's what I did.
Though many of us are familiar with the speculum and routine pap smears, could you help to explain to those who aren't as familiar, what is the standard of care for pelvic exams and why do nearly 90% of women dread having to do it?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and it's something that a lot of women, they know they have to go in for this exam, and they hear all of these kind of terror and horror stories and everything about the device. And the device is sadly very archaic, and there's been very little meaningful change to this device in 200 years. This was started around the same time that telephones were first created. So this is a very, very old design, and it hasn't changed, and it's rigid. And what you're doing with the speculum is you're placing this tool inside the vagina to retract the tissue. Now, the vaginal canal is a round structure, and with this rigid tool, you're only retracting the top and the bottom, and the blades are quite sharp. So when you're placing it and you open it up, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create this space. You're trying to flatten out the column, and you're trying to visually see the cervix at the end of the vagina so that you can collect your samples for cervical cancer, do your procedures, IUDs, endometrial biopsies, collections, everything you need to do. And we're using this tool 360 million times a year in the United States alone. And women dread it because it's painful to have a tool that's rigid and sharp placed in your soft tissue. Mm-hmm. The vaginal canal is a muscle, so when you're guarded and you're nervous for this exam, which is a very nerve-inducing exam, you end up experiencing more pain because you're guarded. And so this tool, because it hasn't changed, women are now avoiding their exams unnecessarily. They're avoiding their exams because they're anticipating pain. And we're now experiencing a higher level of cervical cancer because women aren't coming in for their screening testing.
Wow. So what is the usual age? Is it 21 where you get your first pap smear?
Now 21 is the first year that women start getting collections for pap smears, yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned people avoiding the pap smear. That was me.
Yeah.
Many years ago. I didn't want to do it. Hearing so many horror stories, either in person or online, it's not something that people look forward to, for sure.
No, it's a very uncomfortable, it's an intimate exam. And sadly, 1 in 5 women also have a history of sexual abuse. And those women with the trauma in the past, it's very difficult to go in on this personal exam and have somebody else place something on you. It brings up so much trauma from the past. And women deserve better. They deserve more dignified exams to make sure that their reproductive organs are healthy, and to get contraceptives, and to get everything that they need to make sure that their body is staying, in good working function.
Mm. So in all of your years as a PA, do you have any personal stories or experiences with your patients who are navigating that discomfort of the pelvic exam?
Oh yes, like thousands. I feel like it's probably a daily experience. It's, like you said, 90% of women dread it. Probably close to 90% of the patients that I see mention they're like, I hate this part. I despise this part. This is always the worst part. And I talk them through it. It's a medical exam. I will do the best that I can to make sure that this goes as smoothly and as painless as possible. I reassure them that the more relaxed and comfortable they are, the easier the examination will go. But there are instances when women come in and they're coming in because they need to have pain evaluated, and they already have an area that's tender and that's painful that they need to have, visualized. And so it's a difficult exam for a lot of women. I got to the point now with the company that we're starting with, I'm just tired of having to apologize for the tools that are just so archaic, and women deserve better.
Absolutely. So why do you think it's taken this long for the speculum to be improved?
I think that a lot of people out there have tried to improve the speculum. I think that the problem is something that many providers, patients, I think so many people understand the problem with the speculum, but understanding the physics around it, the dynamics, and exactly what the provider needs in the examination, and then also considering what the patient wants in the examination. And I think that no one has come from really just the, position that I am coming from. I'm engineer minded. I'm constantly MacGyvering when I need stuff, whether I'm assisting in an operating room or I'm in the clinic or anywhere else. I'm thinking about how can I make this situation better. And with that kind of mindset, when you already know and have experienced all of these problems in what you know you need as a provider, and then you take the actual patient's circumstances into view, I just had this unique position to create something. And I think a lot of other people that have tried to do it are either just bioengineers in, an institution or somewhere else, and they're asked to solve this problem, but they don't uniquely understand the provider standpoint and the patient standpoint. You can try and gather as much information as you want, but you don't really truly understand, this is how much pressure you need to overcome. This is the space that you need to use for the tools that need to be used. This is the amount of visualization you'll need of the vaginal canal. This is what you'll need for doing a L.I.T.E procedure or a colposcopy or an IUD. This is what you'll need if somebody has morbid obesity. This is what you'll need if somebody is paraplegic. So taking 20 years of experience of seeing all of these patients and knowing what all of them need, as well as what I need, makes just kind of me being this unique position helpful to create something. But I don't think when people have in the past tried to attempt it, they've had all of that available to them.
Yeah, so you definitely provide a very unique perspective that's necessary for this kind of redesign.
Yeah, everyone else is just trying to use this same design and just tweak it a little.
Make it more comfortable.
Right, so they're using the same like in a lever. Mm-hmm. They think this is the only way to create the space for visualization is this lever technique. And no one's taken a step back and said, why don't we just work with the tissue instead of against the tissue? Why don't we create something that is completely redesigned, reimagined, and get away from this archaic design?
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about MVI then. You first got the idea to redesign the speculum in 2012, but it was only at the height of the pandemic in 2020 that you filed the provisional patent for the ROSA spec and founded MVI. Is there a story behind the name of your startup, MVI?
Yes, yeah. So MVI stands for My Village Innovations. I grew up, I have 3 sisters and have always played women's sports. I played like every sport, and I've always been on big team sports. And my whole life I've had just a team of women around me, supporting me, being there for me, helping, allow me to shine, to be the best that I can be, and supporting me in that role. So going into this, creating the company, as a mom, I was my son was only 2, crawling through a pop-up tunnel when I had the idea. And you need to get to where you have okay, I have this time now to actually create something, and looking at who I'm creating it for. Why am I creating it? Thinking about that. I'm creating it for all those women that I've met in my life, that have supported me, and that have uniquely brought me to this point to create this tool. And they are my village, so they are who I'm innovating for.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the ROSA spec then. How is it different from the traditional speculum?
Okay, so the archaic speculum that we're still using today, the tool, this is a Peterson speculum. It also comes as a Graves speculum. You can see the difference in the width of the bill of the speculum here. So this is just a wider speculum. But the typical one that we use is the Peterson. And the way that the speculum is used, the speculum is placed into the vaginal canal, and you'll push back on this lever here, pull down, and it will create a retraction of the anterior portion of the vaginal tissue, as well as stability of the posterior portion. The idea is to flatten out the side walls of the vagina and be able to see or visualize down at the end here, the internal area where the cervix is, so that you can do your collection of samples, your procedures, everything else. But the problem with this speculum truly is that it's only really retracting 2 sides of the vagina, and the side walls will collapse in. And that happens more than 50% of the time. And when the side walls collapse in, it obstructs your visibility of the cervix and it complicates your exam. And your options are only to open up the bill as wide as you can, which can often tear and create more pain for the patient, or to use the wider one, which can again tear and create more pain for the patient. And it doesn't always work, and you still have the obstruction of the side walls that you're trying to navigate for visibility. And so 20% of cervical cancers are missed in the overweight and obese population. My clinical opinion is that these side walls contribute to a poor collection, because that's more common in the obese and overweight population to have that side wall collapse. So this is the archaic form with this handle right here, metal. It also comes in plastic, rigid 2-blade speculum. So we have created ROSA speculum, which is made of a soft silicone. You can see this is in its down or collapsed position, but you can see it's a soft silicone, and it is something that is lightweight and can be self-placed by the patient or placed by the provider. It has a little inserter here that just helps with ease of use. So it is placed into the vagina, into the vaginal canal. It's a very small diameter here, similar to that of a transvaginal probe, self-placed into the vagina. And then the patient or the provider then can just take these little tabs and lift up and lift off the sides of each of where it is attached there. And once you do that, it opens up gently. So the vaginal tissue does not have to be strained. It does not have to be opened up as wide as it can. And what it does is it will create circumferential retraction of the vaginal tissue. The introducer is then removed and discarded. There's a little collar here, which if it's abutting the patient's bottom, or if you're having any difficulty seeing the structure of the cervix at the end, you swivel this collar up, and then it attaches right into the same tabs in which the inserter was attached to previously. And it allows for complete support of the structure so that you can see the cervix at the end. It will make your exam more complete, more accurate, and more comfortable for the patient. After the procedure is completed, what you can do if the collar is up there, you can just again remove the tablets gently from the sides and the top, and then the collar will then swivel back down, and then you just hold the tabs together and the device collapses down, and then you remove it. It's single use and future focus for biodegradable. We also, because obviously not every woman has the same exact size tissue or cervix, we have a larger version. So again, this is made with a little bit of a tougher one just for visualization. But we have a larger speculum that we will have available, especially for procedures like L.I.T.E procedures, where you really want to keep that tissue away from the cervix, where you're using a hot wire to remove any abnormal cells. And we have a smaller one for women who have had either like radiated vaginal tissue or menopause, or have a very difficult exam or vaginismus. So we have smaller ones that will collapse on even smaller and wider ones. So if we have more endemic tissue, somebody who just had a vaginal delivery or anything else, or we need to use the larger one for the speculum to be able to see the entire cervix, for an ectropion cervix, for colposcopies, we have these other options available to make sure that the exam is the most complete and accurate for the provider and patient. But they are all going to still be made of this soft silicone material so that the ease and comfort for the patient is still fast forwarded.
Hey, so a little break from our conversation. Oceanside Perspective is a 501c nonprofit dedicated to human skills education. So we would appreciate any support from you, whether it's liking this video, subscribing to this channel, or subscribing to our newsletter below in the description box. Thank you, and let's get back to our chat. That's an amazing invention. And what feedback have you gotten from providers and patients about it?
So far, we've done only benchtop testing. We're getting ready to go to manufacturing. And once we get to manufacturing and we can show that we have all of the materials are biocompatible and all the clean testing, all of that, because we're 510K exempt, so we can go straight to market once we get that with the FDA. So far, we've done the benchtop testing using that Mercy Ado method, and the providers that have come in to utilize it are floored. They love it. They're reaching back out to me, when can I get this? When is this available? I would like this now. They're very, very excited for it. So all of the feedback has been incredible. I even had a call with a physician today, and she can't wait to have these to use in her office.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that the ROSA spec is single use and disposable, and that's to minimize risk of infection?
Yes, we do have the opportunity, and our future focus is to also use biodegradable materials. Because a lot of us as providers are using the metal speculums right now, which have to be cleaned with a solution, they have to be autoclaved, they have to be repurposed. And yes, you're asking individuals to clean this for you, and you don't know, are they doing the best job? So there is that like risk of contamination, infection, all of that you worry about when you're using reusable speculums. But as far as the carbon footprint goes, like maintaining like a sound like environmental plan, we want to create our ROSA speculum using biodegradable materials like sugar polymer plastics that are available now that are already used in menstrual discs.
Yeah, I like to ask because my generation, Gen Z, and of course others as well, are really into sustainability, and I know that there's so much medical waste, and though it's important for the minimization of infection, I think there's still always the question of, could it be biodegradable, could it be like reusable, things like that?
Yes, and I think with these, our goal is more biodegradable. So with those sugar polymers, we know that they are the biodegradables, so we want to go in that avenue. Because if you are constantly requiring re-sterilization, reuse, the infection risk, plus just the risk that is somebody going to clean it, and the amount of money that you have to spend to clean it, unfortunately, medical institutions don't want to pay the extra amount of money. That's why so many institutions are going towards using disposables now, is because they're cheaper than having somebody paid to clean them, repurpose them, repackage them. So they want to go to the disposables, and those disposables are terrible carbon footprint, and some of them have batteries in them, which I think is appalling, to be wasting batteries with every single speculum. I mean, 360 million speculums in the United States, and close to 40% of those are now considered, the disposable ones. So we are wasting a ton. And we want to make sure that we are paying attention to that with our ROSA spec and decreasing that problem.
So pivoting a little bit, recently you were awarded the 2025 Women's Fast Pitch winner by the Stella Foundation.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Could you tell us more about that experience?
It was incredible. The Stella Foundation is unbelievable in supporting women entrepreneurs. And you don't know how hard it is as a woman entrepreneur until you get out there and find out that only 2% of funding will go to you, especially in women's health, and that you have to really fight for it. And it is a challenge, but it's something that when you get around the Stella Foundation and other women investors, women entrepreneurs, you realize that there is an avenue for you. There are people who care. There is this amount of passion and empathy and understanding and unity, and getting into those communities really does fill your cup. So for any entrepreneurs out there, I do highly recommend finding your community, because you do need a lot of stamina, you do need a lot of energy and support in ways that you don't know that you need it yet.
So you've had 20 years of experience as a PA. But what have you learned as a startup founder about pitching to investors, and what's your approach to pitching?
I'm still learning all of these things, and it's something that I will probably always learn, as there's always moving targets in these directions. The economy and things will change, and you need to know your audience, and that's something that I've learned, is to know your audience when you're pitching to investors. Know what their passions are, know how you align, know if it's the right fit. Make sure that you're pitching to somebody who has the same future idealization of like where they want to see this go that you do. Make sure everything is aligned. Because when you are pitching to the people who care, to the people who see and want the same things, it goes so much better. It goes so much smoother. And even if it doesn't work out, you still walk away learning something, but also finding that they were empathetic and that they want to connect you with somebody else or introduce you to someone else. And it's something that I continue to learn. Bootstrapping is extremely tough, but a lot of times that's the way that it gets you to the inflection point in which a lot of investors want to see. So even though it takes a lot of grit, a lot of time, a lot of energy, it sometimes is the way to get you to the inflection point you need to be ready to pitch to those investors. Because if you pitch too soon, you may miss out on that opportunity. Whereas if you waited a little while, got to that inflection point, had that strong support system to really show what kind of value you bring to that investment, that's incredibly important.
Do you see any similarities between pitching and your practice as a PA?
At first, I didn't see as much because I'm much better with one-on-ones. For 20 years, I have a patient across from me. I'm sitting down. I'm listening to her. I'm finding out, what is she really here for? Sometimes it's, I'm just here for a health exam, but there's more. So listening in and just communicating back and forth one-on-one has been something I've grown accustomed to and really enjoyed. It's probably the best part of practicing as a clinician. When you go up on a stage and you have to do it in front of like hundreds of people, it's a different experience and it can be extremely terrifying. But you just have to remind yourself that you're just having the conversation and you're educating people on what you are most familiar with, and have confidence, because people can tell when you're not confident and when you're nervous. And you just have to take deep breaths and know, if you mess up, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Let people know that like you're still learning and you're doing the best, but you're dedicated and you're passionate about what you're doing, and you hope that they see that.
Right. That authenticity really comes through.
Yeah.
And that passion for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know our Rosa spec, and I can tell you this because I think this is kind of a fun one. When I was in college, I had a little placard by my bedside table, and it was from Eleanor Roosevelt's quote, and her quote was, "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams." And I've kept it by my bedside table. It's still there. 20, I'll just say plus years later, 20 plus years later. I won't age myself too much. When I decided that, My Village Innovations, and we were developing the Rosa spec, we didn't know what to call it. So many engineers and entrepreneurs and everybody, they name their speculum after them. But I wanted it to be for the community. I wanted it to be for women, all women. We needed to be empowered. So that quote has stood by me, by my bedside table forever. So I wanted to have something about Eleanor Roosevelt in there. But then also thinking of other like women empowering figures like Rosie the Riveter, Rosa Parks. And so Rosa kind of stood out with Roosevelt, Rosa Parks, Rosie the Riveter. And so we decided to name the Rosa spec for all women, for empowerment, for that believe in the beauty of your dreams, and it can happen.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's such a beautiful story behind the name.
Thanks.
Well, a lot of our audience is pre-health professionals. I'm pre-med myself, and I know a lot of people are also pursuing PA school.
Oh, yes.
So do you have any advice for those who are wanting to be PAs?
I would say keep an incredibly open mind. The beautiful thing about being a physician assistant is that there's so many different avenues of medicine, and you don't have to decide on one. I originally was sports medicine and urgent care, and ended up, when I moved from, I'm East Coast, Maryland, when I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast 20 plus years ago, there wasn't a lot of physician assistants out here, and it was challenging to find a job, and I ended up finding one that was part-time in family and part-time in OBGYN. But I had dreaded my pap smear. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be the person that everybody dreads. But then I helped people, and I got to do ultrasounds and show them their first baby's heartbeat, and be there for them for the really tough times, and answer the tough questions, and people valued that, and that filled my cup. That made me feel like I'm making a difference, I'm helping. And I think that's the one thing that all of us really want when we get into medicine. We want to know. We love science, we love all of that, but we also genuinely want to help. And you'd want to always hold on to that, but let your life and your experiences guide you in the direction of medicine that you're the most passionate about. That really fills your cup, because you're going to be doing this your life, right? And you want to make sure that whatever you get into is something that makes you happy.
Mm-hmm. So this podcast is called Purpose, Why Medicine? What do you consider your purpose to be today?
My purpose today is really to let everyone out there know that medicine has so many avenues, and you don't have to put yourself in just one spot and say, this is the only thing that I'll ever do. Like, I'm working in OBGYN, and now I'm developing a new instrument as an entrepreneur, and I'm getting it out there. It's still in medicine, and I think my purpose is to just make sure that my empathy, my caring, and my compassion, and the reason I got into medicine, is what continues to shine wherever I am in whatever walk of my life.
You mentioned that you're still working as a PA.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance that and your founding your startup?
So now that it has been 20 years as a physician assistant, I have cut back on my hours significantly in the last year. So it's more part-time that I'm working. And then the other part-time, because it is such, a bootstrapped skeleton crew with a startup company. All the other hours will go into the startup company, and I continue to have my patient care, not only just to help pay the bills. San Diego's a little expensive, but also just to kind of like continue to fill my cup. So the days where entrepreneurship is really, really tough, and I have to remind myself why I'm doing this, I have those days that I get into the clinic and I have, patients ask to give me a hug because I was the first person that they felt that listened to them. I'm the first person that helped them, or I got them through a really tough situation. And you find the balance in how you continue to get through your day and make sure that you're doing something meaningful.
I think they fill your cup in different ways. So is that something that you're going to continue doing both?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, before being an entrepreneur and going straight into My Village Innovations, I was always building. I've never not been building. I've always taken art, and I'm not building as many lemonade stands and then other things at home, but I've always been building things. And to continue to keep that creative mind is absolutely necessary. That's actually part of my outlet. It's part of when I need to get away from like the constant tasks and emails and things that I know I need to get through. Building is exciting and fun, and it's something that I'll always have.
You co-founded MVI with your husband,
Mm-hmm.
who has more than a decade of experience in medical sales. So you two bring different perspectives and expertise to the table and to the venture. What's that collaboration like?
It's wonderful, actually. You would think that it would be too much to like live and work with your spouse, but he's fantastic. He's been in medical device for 20 years and in management, and he understands the business aspect, all of the business aspect that goes into this, and he helps me navigate all of that, because that's more of a new space for me. Being 20 years in medicine, even though I understand all the business aspects and avenues of, what I would need in clinic and what I would need to do to get a new product and all of that, I don't understand as much of the aspects of, from a business standpoint, getting things into a market or into a business, and he does. He understands that very well, as well as just the structure of companies, because he's been in that field. We're so tight that it's easy to just be like, hey, this just came up, this email came through, I need this, this, and this. And, I can text him and be like, also, I'm getting bread and milk, So it's nice really to have the relationship where you can rely on your best friend to be there to support you in all those aspects. And he understands if it's been a very stressful week that I need to take that walk with my podcast in my ear to let me, rejuvenate. And he gives me that space. And it's you couldn't ask for better, really.
Yeah, really thoroughly understanding your partner is great, both in business and in life.
Yes.
As our interview comes to a close, Annie, what's the main message that you want our audience to take away from our conversation today?
Just because something is very old and you are told this is just how it's done, this is always just how it's done, don't be afraid to take that step if you have an idea or a way to make it better. It's a tough step and it's a challenging step, but we don't change, we don't grow, we don't learn without that step.
So take that step.
Take that step.
Annie, thank you for taking the time to share your journey to medicine, your founding story of MVI, and the innovative technology that's the ROSA spec with me and our audience today. And thank you on the behalf of women everywhere for doing this amazing work for the health and well-being of our current and future generations. And I wish you and MVI all the very best.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure.